Days after 5 farmers were killed in police firing in Mandsaur, Madhya Pradesh and under fire, Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan is visiting families of those that were killed. Violent protests in Madhya Pradesh followed similar protests in Maharashtra and in Tamil Nadu by farmers that were highlighting rural distress. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, of course, was on a token fast and was criticized by the opposition for not reaching out to the families of those that were killed in police firing.
We are currently standing right at the spot in Badwan where the CM has just visited and met the family members of Ghanshyam Dhakar. Ghanshyam Dhakar was one of the farmers who was shot dead during the standoff between the protesters and the police, which happened last Tuesday. And the CM had said that he would be visiting the family members of all the protesters who've been killed. At the same time, he had also given a compensation of 1 crore. He had come here to meet the family members right now. He spoke to the family members. He also met the widow of Ghanshyam Dhakar inside, and you can see the large number of crowd which had gathered here right now just to catch a glimpse of CM Shivraj Singh Chauhan.
Let's also listen into the exchange between Mohit and families of those that were killed in police firing. This exchange happened right before the Chief Minister made his way to Mandsaur. Here are members of those families explaining what they expected of the Madhya Pradesh government and why this unrest could continue.
सीएम अभी आए थे, आपको आश्वासन देके गए, क्या कहा सीएम ने? सीएम ने क्या कहा?
उन्होंने कहा कि जो डीए है उनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई की जाएगी और उसके बाद जो भी कार्रवाई की जाएगी उसके सख्त मतलब ये किया जाएगा, उसको निलंबित वगैरह।
आपने आगे क्या क्या डिमांड रखी है सीएम के सामने?
उनके सामने ये डिमांड कि उसको शहीद के ऊपर ही जाए और जो भी मुआवजा पाटीदार समाज के उनको दिया है वो मुआवजा यहाँ पर दिया है, जो और उनकी मिसेज है उनको सरकारी नौकरी लगाई जाए।
काफी देर तक सीएम यहाँ थे, क्या आपको एक्सपेक्टेशंस हैं कि आपकी मांगे जो भी हैं वो पूरी होंगी? आश्वासन देके गए हैं?
ऐसा आश्वासन दे गए वो कि आपकी जो भी मांगे है और जो भी आपकी परेशानी है वो मुझसे शेयर कर सकते।
क्या वो कह के गए हैं कि वो दोबारा आएंगे, दोबारा मिलने आएंगे आप लोगों से?
नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं कहा उन्होंने।
दोबारा तो मुश्किल आएंगे, लेकिन उन्होंने जितना मतलब सांत्वना देके गए कि हाँ मैं तुम्हारे साथ हूँ।
मतलब आश्वासन देके गए हैं कि वो सारी जितनी मदद हो पाएगी वो देंगे और आप लोगों के साथ। So there you heard from the family members of Ghanshyam Dhakar saying that while the CM himself has promised to give all help and support to the family members, he has also said the family has put forward a demand that Ghanshyam Dhakar, the farmers who were shot dead between the standoff between the protesters and the police, should be called a martyr, and at the same time there should be a statue built up in his remembrance.
Mohit Sharma is joining us on the phone line from Mandsaur. Mohit, unlike in Maharashtra, where there appeared to be a clear resolution wherein farmers' organizations met with the government of the day and a blanket farm loan waiver was announced, a setting up of a joint committee was announced, a time frame was given for the waiving off of farm loans, as also the promise that recommendations of the MS Swaminathan Commission report will be looked into and perhaps be implemented in a time-bound manner. What are the specifics we're hearing from the Madhya Pradesh government? This, of course, is politically optics, the Chief Minister going and reaching out to the families, where the farmers have been killed in police firing. What are the specifics? Is there a plan that the Madhya Pradesh government has to resolve, or are they sort of waiting for this to blow over?
The CM Shivraj Singh Chauhan actually took a meeting last night of all cabinet ministers, and an emergency meeting of sorts was called in before his visit to Mandsaur, and it seems that nobody in the cabinet ministry is actually ready to waive off the loans. However, there seems to be an agreement on increasing the MSP. When compared to whatever happened in Maharashtra, and the government had decided that the loans should be waived off with immediate effect, at least for the small farmers, it seems that nothing of sort is likely when it comes to Madhya Pradesh, as the central government has already cited itself. It says that it won't be helping any of the states if or whenever they actually go ahead with waiving off the loans. So it seems that is one of the major hurdles when it comes to waiving off of loans. The state like Madhya Pradesh, which is largely an agrarian state, it says that if they once waive off the loans, there is a possibility that other farmers and other defaulters may also start doing the same, and they may also not repay the loans. So that is what we've been hearing so far, and that is also one of the statements that came in from the agricultural minister. of Madhya Pradesh yesterday. At the same time, Shivraj Singh Chauhan coming here, it seems that he is likely to increase the MSP, and also he has also announced that a special agrarian market, especially for the farmers, would be established in the state, and at the same time, a fund of 1,000 crores will be kept aside to ensure that any fluctuations in the MSP is catered to from that particular budget. At the same time, as you rightly pointed out, Shivraj Singh Chauhan is here. This seems like a photo op right now. He spent almost 15 to 20 minutes with the family members of one of the protesters who were killed in the standoff, but he didn't make any of the announcements right now. He just said that he assured that proper judicial inquiry will take place and justice will prevail. But apart from that, he did not actually say anything regarding whether the fact whether it be loans or MSP would be increased or whether the loans would be waived off. On the other hand, you also have how compensation has been paid to the farmers, to the family members of the farmers who were killed. 1 crore each has already been allocated, and it said that it will soon be transferred into the bank accounts of the farmers. At the same time, there are rumors that the businessmen who were hit violently, who were hit during these protests, and whatever damage was caused to their property would also be refunded by the state. So it seems like the state government has finally turned into and trying to find a solution to this violence. But right now there has been no major announcement by the CM himself right now. Yeah.
Right. All right, Mohit Sharma reporting from Mandsaur in Madhya Pradesh. Thanks very much for joining us. The Shivraj Singh government in Madhya Pradesh is certainly feeling the pressure to waive off farm loans after neighbouring Maharashtra announced a blanket farm loan waiver. That may likely not happen, as Mohit is pointing out. A similar SOP was announced by Uttar Pradesh earlier. Here's the chairman of India's largest public sector bank, SBI, Arundhati Bhattacharya, weighing in on whether waivers like these are indeed prudent. She was speaking to ET Now's Sandeep Gurumurthy.
As soon as a loan waiver happens, actually my books look better, because the money comes back to the banks only. But going forward, the fact is we have to ensure the farmers that they get remunerative price, and for that we need much more larger reforms or longer term strategies.
You don't believe this vitiates credit discipline? The reason I'm asking is there are now reports that there are several farmers who are in a position to repay loans and are still defaulting. Do you see that trend happening?
See, it is very early days to talk about trends, okay? It's very early days. So we don't really know how far things will go. But I think at the end of the day, the farmer is also aware that, for the next crop, he will come back to the bank. And therefore, to that extent, many of them are very cooperative with us.
Let's take a look at what is at the center of these farmers' protests, apart from farm loan waivers and, of course, the promise of better minimum support price. Here's the situation that we're faced with: bountiful production and plunging prices. Just to give you a sense of how this is, onion was being sold in Madhya Pradesh just recently for 1 rupee. Tur dal in Maharashtra was being sold for 40 rupees. There are some of the other prices that we can pick up. Turmeric, for instance, in Maharashtra. Potatoes in Haryana being sold for as less as 80 paise. Soya bean was being sold at 33% rate lesser than the price in 2016. This perhaps gives you a sense of what is at the center of this rural distress that we have been talking about, not just in Madhya Pradesh, but in Maharashtra, in Tamil Nadu, etc. Somebody who's been underscoring this point time and again, certainly in the recent past, has been commodities guru G. Chandrasekhar. Thank you for speaking to Mirror Now. For the benefit of our viewers, could you put this in context, what we are faced with when we say bountiful yields and plunging prices? And do you see anything that has been out in the public domain in terms of statements made by any of these state governments that suggest that this is being looked into with any element of seriousness that it deserves?
Yeah. Let me start by saying the Government of India and various state governments over the years have learned to address the problem of shortage. There are easy solutions to address shortage, like import storage restrictions, ban export, etc., etc. But we haven't frequently faced a situation of surplus, except, of course, in case of onion. But 2016-17 is a year when we have faced surpluses in a very large number of crops, including pulses and oilseeds like soybean. And state governments have no clue how to support farmers in times of bountiful harvest and when prices are falling. But the state governments have certain limitations. For example, I would think the central government should have stepped in much earlier in case of the dal crisis, falling dal prices. Why are exports still prohibited? Pulse exports still prohibited. Why is there no support for the soybean growers of Madhya Pradesh by hiking the custom duty on imported soybean oil? The cheap soybean oil import is depressing domestic prices. And therefore, there are tariff instruments, there are trade instruments which should be deployed by the central government to arrest a sharp collapse in prices. But I suspect the center in the last 6 to 8 months has failed to identify the incoming crisis and has failed to take prompt action.
Right. Mr. Chandrasekhar, if I could ask you a sort of a bigger picture question, why would you say that we have failed to see sort of pressure being built on the government? Where are the advocacy groups? If in industry-specific advocacy groups have been successfully able to coerce the government, we don't see those kind of pressure groups, advocacy groups being able to lean on the government to act in the manner that one would have expected.
Absolutely. There are various trade associations and industry associations, but these associations are generally of the processors and the importers, and therefore their agenda is very different. In fact, these processors want to buy raw material like pulses and oilseeds at the lowest possible price, and therefore they would of course shed crocodile tears for farmers, etc. But their agenda is very clear. Therefore, don't expect any advocacy group to come forward. At the same time, I must share with you my own experience. Over the last 6 to 7 months, I've written any number of articles in the Hindu Business Line under my byline, making a series of recommendations to the government of India on how to address the pulses, falling price crisis, etc. But there is complete inaction on the part of the central government, the Food Ministry, Agriculture Ministry, Commerce Ministry, Finance Ministry. There are 4 ministries involved, but I suspect there is no coordination among them at all. So actions were possible. Price collapse could have been arrested, could have been averted, but I think now it's a bit too late to save the day.
On that note, Mr. G. Chandrasekhar, appreciate you weighing in and bringing your expertise on what clearly is an issue that multiple state governments are now struggling to cope with. Thanks very much for the moment.